Morning.
And we are very happy at Inertia to have you with us. And obviously, my first question is India today has about 225 gigawatt of power. Of course, we have two schools of thought. One is that we have added enough capacity in the last plan. But the other schools of thought is that we are still catching up in terms of GDP. The country has reached $1.78 trillion, whereas the country could have been double of that GDP. With simply the capacity in the ratio of 225, we could have been at 400 gigawatt. That comparison comes from China, because China has about 900 gigawatt, but in an energy efficiency term, they are 500 gigawatt. And that's why people say they have reached a $7 trillion GDP. So is there a situation where we still need to, even though we don't like to compare with China, but there is a lesson in this whole story that India should do much better to fuel its economic drive and GDP growth rate, which has now hit 4.2% growth,
Yeah, see, apart from macroeconomics, how much is the GDP and at what rate of growth we will continue to grow for the next 15-20 years, the fact, and how exactly we should compare ourselves with China, the fact remains that our average, that is per capita consumption of energy, is less than 1,000 still.
Right.
Whereas in case of China, it is approaching 2,000, or
it's crossed.
It has crossed
2,200.
And forget about the world average, which is some 4,000 or something.
Correct.
So we have a lot to go. Even to reach world average, we have to grow how many percent? 4 times.
Correct.
We have to grow. Now, question is, where is this capacity going to come from?
Right.
If we have to grow 4 times, that means it will have to be. There is a planning commission study that by 2032, I think, we need to have 800,000 megawatt.
Right.
So if that is the ultimate goal for the next 20 years, we need to see where this capacity is going to come from. But even before we address that question, what is the present situation? How much capacity do we have and how exactly are we using it?
Exactly.
We have about 20,000 megawatt of gas capacity, which is almost lying idle.
Yeah.
There's almost 60,000 megawatt of thermal capacity, which is waiting for coal allocation.
Right.
We have not yet thoroughly resolved the issue of high cost of imported coal.
Right.
Although there is a CRC decision and there's the Parekh committee, etc. But I'm sure the last word is not yet spoken on that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a question of the sanctity of a tendering process vis-a-vis having to bail out projects which are nationally important, obviously there's no doubt about it,
Right.
and which are in trouble. So that process is still on. So in this context, looking at the larger picture of 20-25 years from now is one thing, and solving our day-to-day issues of today,
Correct.
that is the other part. The third piece of the story, of course, is what is happening in the distribution sector.
Correct.
Because on the one hand, we have very low rates in the merchant power market, which shows that there is surplus capacity looking for outlet, looking for dispatch. On the other hand, we have load shedding still continuing in many
Yes,
states.
almost all the states are doing
Almost all states. Now, this could be one reason is transmission constraints. Okay, that could be sorted out. But the more fundamental problem is that there is no paying capacity on the part of utilities.
Mm-hmm.
That, of course, does not mean that the consumers have no paying capacity.
That's right. This is the right question to address,
Right. So, take the example of Gurgaon, where we are sitting now and where I also live.
Right.
My society where I live, it has backup generator for everything.
Correct.
And that power is coming to us at some 15, 16 rupees.
Yeah, 16 rupees roughly.
16 rupees. Now, this is a perfect case of market failure. That power of 3 rupees is going begging in the market.
Absolutely.
And people are having to
Purchasing
pay
at
15,
16 rupees.
Why is this happening? This market failure needs to be addressed. So there are consumers who have the capacity and the necessity for power,
Correct.
capacity to
And
pay.
they will pay for it.
They will pay for it. Look at the Andhra industry. Don't they have the capacity to pay?
Mm-hmm.
But they are being starved of power. As a result, the economy is suffering. On the other hand, you have idle capacity going a begging.
Right.
How do we address this market failure?
Right.
That is the first issue. So there, I think we have not done enough on the front of open access.
Right.
Because the entire idea of Electricity Act 2003, 10 years now,
Right.
was that we create competition in the power sector
Right.
by giving open access.
Right.
So certain classes of consumers will have the freedom to source their power and not necessarily from the incumbent monopoly utility.
Correct.
But that has not happened to a significant extent.
Yeah, but that means on paper, still open access. Many states are not
It has
following
remained
the
on
rule.
paper. They have not followed it, certainly not in spirit.
Right,
They put all kinds of hurdles in it
right.
because they feel that this present beautiful and convenient system of cross subsidy, where there is a large number of subsidized consumers
Right,
who are dependent on a smaller number of
Right.
subsidizing consumers,
right.
will fail. And if it fails, it will have political repercussions.
Correct.
So, unless we address this issue, that how exactly do we regulate this system of cross subsidy? The Act, if you will recall, originally said as the objective the gradual elimination of cross subsidy.
Yes, that was there in the first
That
draft.
was first in the first, not
Not
just
the
draft,
draft, that's the final
the
output
way it
that
was
came
passed.
out. Okay.
But then there was an amendment. Elimination word was eliminated.
My God.
And it was replaced by gradual reduction in cross subsidy. Now, what is that trajectory? Is there a trajectory for that reduction? There is no trajectory. It is left conveniently to the whims
It
and
is
fancies
open, it's
of.
kept open.
It is kept open. It is left to the whims and fancies of state regulators, who it is alleged. I am not saying that that is true. They are just puppets of the state government.
There is
That may not
maneuvering.
be true. They
That,
may not
that
be
may
puppets.
maneuvering just happen. Like everywhere, every regulator. I'm not
Yeah.
saying only this sector. I think this is still evolving. So probably you're right to that extent that there could be maneuvering, and if some kind of a pliability comes in, then the state loses.
So we don't see any seriousness on the part of a large number of regulators to make open access actually happen,
Yeah, work on the ground, you know.
work on the ground, to remove the bottlenecks. There are a number of bottlenecks which are created by utilities who want to preserve that system of cross subsidy. So there is no seriousness either on the part of regulator or the utility or the state government or the central government to really not eliminate but reduce.
Yeah, with a time frame.
Reduce
Say
with a
6 years,
time
7
of-
years.
yes.
Yeah,
We must have visibility of the end of this process
exactly.
or progress about this process.
Yeah.
In what manner and in what time frame the cross subsidy is going to be reduced.
Right.
We don't have that. One of the instruments in reducing the cross subsidy is to force open access and therefore, in other words, force utilities to increase the tariff for subsidized.
That's
customers.
right. That's right.
That has not yet happened. So we have a situation, again to come to Andhra, where the subsidizing consumer
Yeah,
is suffering
correct.
load shedding.
And the
I don't
subsidy-
know whether subsidized consumer is happy or not.
I don't think he's also happy.
I don't think he's happy either.
Not at
Because
all.
he's not getting the kind of quality of power
Absolutely.
which
And he
everybody
does not get in
deserves.
his time. For example, a farmer,
Right,
if you give him a power at the mid of the night, maybe at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m.,
right.
when he will not get the best out of his system crop.
Absolutely.
It should come at a time when there is some kind of sun rays, scientifically, and he never gets it at that time.
So you have, the much touted, by the way, I support that, the feeder separation system.
Yeah, which has happened in states like Gujarat and Chhattisgarh and even Maharashtra.
Yes,
is starting.
Maharashtra.
Yeah,
It relieves the current situation to a large extent.
yeah, a lot of burden is reduced.
A lot of burden is reduced, but it doesn't address the fundamental problem.
Exactly.
What does it do? It reduces supply to subsidized consumers like agriculture
Yeah.
at a time when it is not convenient for the utility to give it.
Okay.
So you have a separate feeder, you decide how many hours of electricity
You're going on to this feeder.
will go on to that feeder and
Absolutely.
then.
Yeah.
So you are rationalizing the rationing
Right.
of power. Yes, it is a good step, a necessary step, but we are not going beyond that.
Yeah. This is just the first step,
It
actually.
is the first step, a necessary step to buy time,
Right.
so that the tremendous hardship that the consumer has to face is relieved.
Correct.
So it is relieved. But if we have bought time through this measure, at least we should take the second step.
Yeah.
That is the more fundamental reform.
Right.
But that second step is not being taken. That is the problem.
Right.
Unfortunately, the Draft Electricity Amendment Act, which is now doing the rounds, also does not address this issue.
Okay. It's been silent on this.
It is silent on reduction in cross subsidy, the time frame, etc. It is virtually silent on open access. It does not do anything new.
Which is the key issue to be addressed
Which
in the
is the
country
key
now.
issue. The fundamental theme of this amendment is separation of carriage and content.
Okay.
So you will get supply licenses. Now, what does the supply licensee, apart from the incumbent licensee, do? He has the freedom to supply any of the open access consumers.
Okay.
But if you don't have open access consumers,
How do you feed them?
how do you feed them? And what exactly do you do? So it does not solve or even address the more fundamental issue of open access. Government very nicely issued a clarification
Right.
that 1 megawatt and above, all consumers have open access.
Right.
What has happened? Almost 1.5 years down the line or 2 years down the line, nothing. On ground things have not changed.
Absolutely.
So if we wanted to do through legislation, the draft amendment does not address it. If we are leaving it to the states, states are not doing
It will not happen.
It will
In
not
fact,
happen.
Yeah.
And unless this happens, your problem of bleeding that is happening in the distribution sector.
Yeah. We were
Will
to
not
come to a
cease.
below 15% long time back, but just a few states have been
Just a
able to
few.
do. Maybe a couple of states.
The rest are where they were.
Yeah.
So we will continue to have the bailouts, the first Ahluwalia package, 2002, 2003, around that time. That happened. It was supposed to be a breather and a time for addressing more fundamental issues. That time we have wasted. Now we have come out with a new bailout.
Yes. So every
That-
time we're coming up with a new SOP.
That will again be a breather.
Right.
I hope at least now we realize, learning from past experience, and we address more fundamental questions.
Correct. So, sir, in the same breath, the way you pushed forward all the issues related to the, I would say basically the policy framework, and also to take a direction, maybe a targeted direction to achieve it, which we definitely lost that opportunity in the last plan, that we could have brought down, the TND losses could have come down to below 15%. That was not done. Power for all by 2012. That's made powerlessness for all by 2012. So going further, we also destroyed very key sectors where you were the joint secretary and you had the distinction of overseeing some of the good projects at that point of time. So hydropower has simply come to a standstill after that.
Yes, that is the unfortunate part. The world over, we see a resurgence in hydropower.
Right.
10, 15 years back, even the World Bank had forsaken hydro. But the World Bank has taken it up. And there are a number of countries. In China, there's a lot being done.
Yeah,
hydropower.
absolutely. They are working very hard on that.
Very hard and, well, it is criticized also.
Yeah, that will there.
But in Africa, there's a lot happening in hydro. Even Europe,
Yes.
the old continent, so to
Yes,
say,
yes.
where still a lot of capacity exists.
All right.
They're doing it in countries like Georgia. They have picked it up. So, in short, there's a lot happening in the world over in hydro, but in India, it is stagnating. Now, the reason is that compared to the risks involved in hydro power development, the rewards are not commensurate.
Correct.
That is the fundamental problem. The regulator gives you 16.5% return on equity, whereas in thermal, the tariff determination formula, most of it is not determined like this, it is through market. But the determination formula is 15.5% return on equity. So you would say, you are getting 1% more. The problem is that during implementation period, you are not given that return on equity. The
Correct.
return starts only after commissioning.
Absolutely.
Now compare the two. Thermal gets completed in 4 years.
Yeah, now 4 years is definitely possible. Even 4,000 megawatts,
Yeah,
power
yeah.
being completed in 4 years flat.
4 years. Whereas hydro, minimum 8 years.
7 to 8 years.
7 to 8 years. So you have almost double the time as compared to thermal, where you are not getting any return on equity.
Yeah, and you're burdened by the IDC,
You're burdened by that.
huge way.
Secondly, well, at least half of a thermal tariff is variable cost,
Correct.
coal, and only half is capital cost.
Correct.
Whereas in the case of hydro, it is entirely
Predominantly
capital
capex.
cost, because you incur all expenditures upfront.
Right.
After that, the O&M is a very minor
Just nominal,
part.
I know.
So if the capital cost of a thermal project is, let's say, 4 to 5 crores, in case of hydro, it is 8 to 10 crores.
Correct.
So almost double.
Right.
So what does it mean? You are carrying almost twice the amount of equity burden for twice as much
Correct.
as compared to thermal without any return on it.
Right.
Therefore, in IRR terms, hydro comes down to even 11-12%.
Correct.
Whereas the IRR of a thermal project
It's far better.
It's far better.
It's sustained 15
16.
and sometimes goes more also.
depends on the market also.
Right.
So therefore, fundamentally, hydro is at a disadvantage
Okay. So do you recommend?
as an investor.
Yeah. So I
So
just
rather than going in for a riskier investment, which is not giving you adequate returns, you would go in for a safer investment.
Yes.
That is thermal.
Okay. But do you think there is a case, therefore, when you said it's a green energy, it's a clean energy, it also does not produce carbon. So isn't there a very clear case of providing that interest component at a lower cost from the side of banks, seeing hydropower nature of development?
That is the other funny part. In India, we may be the only country where large hydro is not treated as renewable.
It is mind-boggling because everything is renewable.
Everything is
The whole
renewable.
hydro has to be renewable.
In most countries, Europe, even US,
It is treated that way.
large hydro is also treated as a part of renewable.
Exactly.
So in fact, as a country, if we take into account large hydro and renewables,
Then that's quite a big.
we are doing more than 30%
Exactly.
renewable,
Exactly. We're one of the rarest countries in the world.
which we are not saying.
Yes.
Because we talk only about what MNRE is doing. So
Correct.
this distinction, it may or may not be justified to have a separate ministry for MNRE. I'm not on that point. But this separation of the two ministries has changed our mindset in a sense that we are looking only at
Smaller hydro.
new and renewable sources as renewable,
Right.
whereas the old and renewable sources like large hydro
Are not seen as renewable.
are not seen as renewable, and they don't get any benefits of renewable. So for RPO, for instance,
Correct.
large hydro does not count, small hydro counts.
So this is an aberration.
It's an
It
aberration.
is an open policy aberration.
Now, I would say that, okay, small hydro counts for renewable, large hydro does not. But large solar counts for renewable
Yes.
also,
Even large wind.
even large wind.
Yes.
So it has nothing to do with large or small.
It is the nature of the content, you know.
It is the nature of the God. So I think we need to look at this
Yeah.
and firstly start counting large hydro also
As a
in our
part of
national
renewable
statistics,
strategy. Yeah.
and to show the world that we are 30% renewable.
Correct.
And also start treating large hydro also as a renewable for all
It
purposes.
is a renewable. It is practically a renewable.
It will mean reworking our RPO regime,
Correct.
but we should do it.
Yes. But that will benefit everybody.
That will benefit everybody. It will give some sort of an encouragement
Yes.
because once it becomes mandatory for utilities
Yeah.
to have a certain percentage of RPO,
Yes.
naturally that sector gets some sort of a protection or quota. Now, I'm not saying that large hydro requires protection or tariff subsidy.
Right.
It is the mindset that needs to be addressed, because if you look at it from the point of view of a utility which is in the market for buying power,
Correct.
what will it buy? Will it buy thermal power where tariff is more definite because you know what the fixed
Yeah,
cost is going to be?
Exactly.
And now in the new the standard bid documents, the
Fuel is a
part is a
pass-through.
pass-through.
It's a pass-through. It had to be a pass-through.
So now we are looking at only the fixed part.
Correct.
As far as the utility is concerned, he is certain what the fixed cost is going to be and therefore what the tariff is going to be.
Right.
He also knows that within 3-4 years this power will be available.
Correct.
But when he looks at the hydro option, he finds that he does not know firstly when the power will be delivered. It may be 6 years, 7 years, 10 years also if there's a delay. So he thinks that look, there are going to be 2 elections in between. Why should I bother about something that is going to happen 8 years from now?
Because he doesn't benefit in the
It
political
doesn't
sense.
benefit. And unfortunately, the thinking of administrators also gets influenced by this time frame. You start thinking in terms of the next 3-4 years or the next election.
Yeah, because you're not bothered about the long-term aspect of this whole
Right.
thing.
So how will utilities be encouraged to think in the long term? obviously it makes a lot of sense in the long term to go in for hydro. Look at all the tariffs of hydro projects which are, let's say, more than 25 years old.
Yes.
They are very, very competitive as
Yes.
compared to thermal. And in case of thermal, the tariff will only go up.
Yes. Because the fuel cost will continue to
cost
rise.
will go up. So somebody has drawn a graph which shows that in the next 8 years or so, the two graphs cross. The hydro tariff goes down
Yeah.
and the thermal tariff keeps going up.
And that is obvious because it has to.
Only a disadvantage with hydro is that the initial tariff is high.
Yes.
So it is front loaded
Correct.
because of the high capital cost
Right.
and no O&M.
Right.
And thermal gets backloaded because the coal prices go up.
Right.
How do we in this situation encourage utilities to look at their own long-term self-interest?
Correct. They need.
I'm not saying that because we are doing hydro, something needs to be done for us. I am saying that in the long term it is good for the utility.
For sure. Because if
But
it has
for
the right
reasons,
mix.
the peculiarity is such that you are tempted or you are encouraged to look at the short-term aspect more than the long-term aspect.
Correct.
How do we encourage utilities to look at the
Long term. Yeah.
And therefore, one of the solutions is that to place some sort of a mandate on them to go in for a certain percentage of hydro along with renewables.
Right. So is it what you're effectively suggesting is bundling?
No, not,
A type
not
of a
necessarily bundling. Include large hydro in the renewable portfolio obligation.
Number one is to bring it as renewable.
Now, as compared to wind and solar, which still require some subsidy, I am not saying that subsidy should be given.
Yeah,
There's no
you're
question.
saying it will sell on a market price.
It is on the market price.
Yeah.
It can even be subject to competitive pressure.
Correct.
How exactly that is to be done, that we can talk about that. But at least utilities should be told that a certain percentage
Right.
of your requirement should
Must
be
be
fulfilled
hydro.
from large hydro.
Right.
That will create a market which artificially, for artificial reasons, is not there for hydro now.
Right.
Everybody is running after thermal.
Correct.
But our capacity to go in for thermal is limited
Yes.
because you need land,
Yes.
you need water.
Correct.
Increasingly, there's a report from International Energy Agency that increasingly India is going to find it difficult to provide water for
Yes.
thermal projects.
For sure.
We are already a water stressed country.
Because we are based on cooling tower. The system is using cooling tower for cooling.
Right.
Right.
So we are going in for consumptive use of water in a
Exactly.
water stressed country,
Right.
whereas a non-consumptive use of water, hydro,
Right.
should be more encouraged.
Absolutely. So good, sir. So in this, while we practically see that because we already fallen below 19% in the hydropower share from a level of some 26% in the last plan. So do you see there is a serious case of upping the ante at the Bhutan end, which is looks like coming quickly? Even Sankosh, I heard that there is very little displacement of people, even for such a big project. So do you see a case that with a low population in Bhutan, the time is conducive and a friendly country with you, that we tie them up for a larger potential rather than just looking at that 10 gigawatt model for 2020?
Well, I think India is a natural market for Bhutan power.
Yeah.
So it's not going anywhere. Fortunately, we also have a very good framework in which the two countries are working together. I feel that even if we want more than 10,000 megawatt, for a small country to handle so many projects at the same time may be a challenge. They also on their side have concerns that suddenly there will be an influx of so many people from outside, labor, contractors, this and that and the other. So it might destabilize the peaceful nature of the country. And as you know, they are very concerned about the pace of growth. They are more worried about gross national happiness. Of course, these are platitudes, these are words.
Right.
But yes, it shows a spirit
Yeah.
that they are not necessarily looking at a fast GDP growth rate. It has to be in consonance with environmental concerns, social stability, etc. So from that point of view, I can appreciate where they are coming from. If they say that, look, not at a time, we have time to develop this, let's do 10,000 megawatt first. And then as we go along, as infrastructure develops, these projects start working, then we can look at the next phase. From my side, if Bhutan says, okay, let's do all 25,000 together, it will cost a lot of logistical problems. The road infrastructure, the infrastructure that is leading from India into Bhutan,
Correct.
the road, whatever railhead, the nearest railhead, etc. Are we geared for simultaneous development of 25,000 megawatt? I don't think so. We don't have the agencies also. Then it depends under which model they want to do it. Today, only Indian PSUs are involved.
Yeah.
If they want to continue that model, then it has natural limitations.
Yeah, because one of the things that came out in a recent discussion that I had with them was we proposed that there must be very good role for private sector companies from India.
Right.
And
So,
this, because see, this was being controlled through the MEA here, but in a longer strategy, I think there will be no financial muscle for those projects. See, suppose you give I don't want to name them, but suppose you give, you've seen what an NHPC singularly can do. So our criticism on this is that NHPC itself has not been able to move in the country. So
Right.
how it will move in another foreign
Exactly.
country?
So that, I mean, I
So that
absolutely
comes
agree
into the
with you.
picture. So why not bring the Indian private sector? And so that, see, there is a big game going on. The Bhutanese people say they were not involved in the projects. Then that also creates a condition. The gross national happiness on one side you're talking, you're not involving Bhutanese contractors. So, and then you say, okay, they have no experience. Let us take that stand. If they don't have experience, why don't they marry with Indian contractors? Why don't they have structure? So, a criticism of this model is its slowness is not related to the inability to execute. Here is a country which has limited displacement, which has a great potential, and its own financials become better when India pays for that electricity. And here we're trying to tell them you be locked to your 10 gigawatt, and then we are almost stalling their own ambitions and growth.
I don't know what is the current thinking in Bhutan, but so far they have.
Thinking is they are ready, but they are not ready for the private sector even within, because the private sector is making a lobbying point in Bhutan. They even have ended up with a consortium over there, and we in the geopolitics are not realizing that who is this private sector of Bhutan? They are local people of Bhutan with whom you want to deal as a friendly country.
Right.
So if the government of Bhutan and government of India do not see that it is in the interest of the people that we engage India's private contractors in the game, so that they can engage the local private contractors in a joint sector, I think this model is not
see,
going to progress.
the present
I've asked a
model-
critical question, but that is the situation.
The present model is so convenient. You see what is happening. India is providing equity. I think
Grant,
currently
we provide 30% of the grant,
30% grant.
and balance also through soft loan.
Balance also through soft loan.
Yeah.
So the entire funding is taking place through MEA,
I know,
right?
but
Now
that is not sustainable. I tell you why.
that is not sustainable, but that is for MEA to see.
No, but what will MEA do if the RBI says this is not sustainable? Today, I give you an example. At 10%, there is cheaper money available in the market today. I'm not talking of Chinese money.
Yeah.
I'm talking about cheaper money from the world market. 3.5%, 4% loan. So you are locking not only that country, you yourself are looking at these options within India, where you allow your own private sector to go. So you can't have two policies.
Right. So if the Bhutanese side is willing, I would certainly welcome a situation in which joint sector
Exactly.
or joint venture projects of Bhutanese parties along with Indian
Yes.
parties are encouraged,
Yes.
funded by either international financial institutions or Indian financial institutions or a combination of both,
Yeah.
and tapping the Indian market on market terms.
Absolutely.
That-
because
that
see,
ultimately
one of the
will be-
things we have suggested, which I want to throw off to you so that I can pick up your mind on that, is that the energy exchange is a very successful model here. So you have a power trading model there, where there is predominantly bundling of power. But even bundling of power of the Bhutanese power is not happening to sell to the private utilities. So what happens? Why not a price discovery model? I tell you why it is an economic agenda here. Bhutan is coming in a rupee crisis because the same interest during construction, which takes these projects off to 8 to 9 years, results in Bhutan paying back our loans without earning anything.
Well, I mean that's a financing issue.
But that also is
That is
coming
always
in.
going to happen.
When you don't address this, see, for example, you can, suppose you're not developing these big projects. We are talking small hydro. I'm saying medium hydro, 100, 200 megawatt. Why not start with the joint sector operation of India's private
Why
sector?
not? Why not?
This is the way out.
Yeah, sure.
And then let that be sold through exchange and not at the 2 rupees, 4 rupees that we are talking with them.
Right.
Because they will be stuck with the 2 rupees model. And then you have grants, you fund.
But I don't think in today's situation a completely merchant-based hydro project can be financed.
No, I'm not saying the ratio is big. I'm saying you have a large development of 10 gigawatt. maybe put 2 gigawatt on the anvil to experiment.
Yeah. So it will have to go through the PPA process to get financed,
Right.
because unless it's very small projects like 100 megawatt and below,
Yeah.
which could be funded out of equity.
Absolutely.
Those also could be tried. So I think Indian private sector is certainly open to working out various models with the Bhutanese side,
Yeah.
and it will be a good thing.
We have suggested these companies like HCC, Jindal, I would say even Patel, and there are about 4 or 5 good ones. Maybe make a consortium, get some involvement of,
Yeah,
and
sure.
government must encourage this, because see, when we are encouraging the same private sector in India, and today the shift is happening. When government was actually developing all the projects, now you see the ratio. Now it seems that in this plan, the private sector will almost play an equal role, if not less, to the government of India.
I think Government of India needs to acknowledge the limits of the present framework in which
Exactly.
projects in Bhutan are doing,
Right,
which I am seeing for the last 3-4 years. It is not acknowledging
exactly.
that it cannot go beyond the 10,000 megawatt in the same format.
Yeah, and there is also sluggishness. Like we would have been at 4 gigawatt, because today we are. I have recently understood that we are only importing 1.4 gigawatt, and another 1.8 gigawatt under construction. So this should have been the entire 4 gigawatt, which should have been with India in an export regime. That means Bhutan should be exporting 4 gigawatt by now. So there is already a sign of slowdown, where the bottlenecks are not related to what India faces. Like we face people's opposition, we face environmental issues, but in the case of Bhutan, these issues were much leaner or shorter, but yet we have delayed those projects
Yeah.
because of policy dimensions and an inability to actually commit to what we are financing
Right.
in the regional sense. So I think there is an issue of involving India's private sector anyway in Bhutan, which has been reluctance of the Ministry of External Affairs as far as inertia.
I'm not very
has been
sure.
seen.
I'm not very sure whether it is reluctance only on the part of MEA. It could also be reluctance on the part of the Bhutanese, because the present structure is so convenient, where everything is financed by Indian government.
But that's exactly the point. See, one of the criticism that has come recently in media, both in Bhutan and India, is that the previous government of Bhutan was actually even trying to go to Chinese. So that situation will be competitive, will come. One fine morning that will come. And you are also dealing with China today. So in that sense, I think we should prepare for the future, both the countries. Because on one side, Bhutan is landlocked.
Yeah.
But their landlocked does not mean that they cannot sell more hydropower to us. Because this is like the same model. If you see a larger issue of Itaipu project, 4 countries are cooperating in the hydropower progress, and predominantly Uruguay gets 35% of its GDP contribution by sale of electricity to Brazil from the Itaipu basin. So that is quite a big plan I'm talking. But here, we may not look at so big, but at least in the bilateral sense, India could increase its pool and later on encourage country like Nepal also to come in.
Yeah. We need to move to a more market-based approach. Get out of this hydropower as development assistance more
Correct.
into hydropower as a market-based instrument
Absolutely.
of economic cooperation and integration.
Right. And second, it is a renewable energy, as clear as that. In Bhutan, they see it as totally renewable, while we have in our own policy, we don't see it that way. So I think we need to remove this aberration in our dealing
Right.
in a bilateral sense as well.
And also, Bhutan, which is, I think it is more environmentally conscious.
Absolutely. Much better development.
Much better. They are very particular about not harming the environment.
Exactly.
How hydropower is more acceptable in Bhutan under those circumstances than it is in India,
Right.
I am unable to understand. Is hydropower doing more harm here in India to the environment than it is doing in Bhutan?
That's
Compared
not
to,
the
let's
case.
say, next door Arunachal Pradesh or Sikkim.
Yeah.
How is Bhutan different?
It's not different. Definitely not different.
Then why is it is more acceptable environmentally in Bhutan than it is in India?
See, I think, there is everything to do with the way we have approached this situation. Maybe somebody like you can throw better light on that, because our approach to Bhutan, we don't approach our own Arunachal Pradesh in the same manner, or our Sikkims in the same manner. And that same approach we should give them.
For instance, if you are providing equity to projects in the government of India is providing
Grants and
projects in
everything.
Bhutan.
Yeah.
Arunachal Pradesh also has got in joint ventures with
Right.
private parties, they hold 26% equity.
Right,
But they don't know where this 26% is going to come from.
right.
And sooner or later, we are bound to hit upon this obstacle
Correct.
that Arunachal government cannot fund its own equity,
Yes, for
which
sure.
is supposed to have. Will Government of India give that assistance which it is giving to Bhutan today?
That must be the same treatment, in my opinion.
I don't know.
No different.
I don't know.
Because you cannot have two different policies. This is
So
your.
we'll be told that okay, this is MEA and this is Power Ministry. But if Government of India is one, as it is supposed to be,
It has to be.
how is Arunachal going to be treated in this respect?
I think they will expect the same.
Will they be assisted with equity money or will they not be? We need to see.
Yeah, but the potentials are much larger. You see, the Bhutan potential known is 25 and they are saying roughly 45 gigawatt. But Arunachal potential is much bigger.
It's known as 50.
Known is which one? In the case
Arunachal.
of Arunachal, known is 50. And I think if we go further, we could even reach 100, 120, 140.
God knows. I mean, that only time will
Yeah, yeah. But I'm saying we already have a sizable quantum.
Yeah, sure.
And with Sikkim, I would say Arunachal, Sikkim, and the other northeastern states, it could be why not we think of a model that these people also in the state domestic product, we don't have the concept of GDP, but their contribution to our GDP as a gross state domestic product, these states also come up.
You see how it was done in Himachal Pradesh, let's say. Himachal Pradesh's dependence on central grants
Correct.
has come down as a result of hydropower development. They are generating their own.
Yeah, because of the private sector also involved in a big way.
Today, if Arunachal is dependent on Government of India grants, that dependence will be reduced the moment hydro projects start coming up. So I think it will be a good investment on Government of India's part to provide equity to Arunachal Pradesh government. Out of that equity, resources will get generated.
Absolutely.
And in the long term, their dependence on Government of India grants will get reduced.
Right.
I don't see that, although I know that Arunachal government is pitching for this, but I don't see it coming to any conclusion as yet.
Okay. So, ineffectively, what you are saying is favoring the progress of hydropower, bringing it back, working hard on it, maybe through this eastern corridor, extend that model from Bhutan into our eastern side, and see a greater share of hydropower coming in. Because that's the only way out to balance the act
Right, absolutely.
at this point of time,
Absolutely.
and seeing hydro as a renewable. So, I would also like to extend one last question to you on the renewable energy portfolio, since you are heading that at Jindal as well. How do you see solar has done reasonably well?
Very well.
So, do you see a greater potential for solar? Because we have come out with a report that there's far greater potential instead of the 20 gigawatt by 2022, which is looking like a slower model. It seems that 40 gigawatt will come. We have given enough evidence to that effect in our reports at Inertia.
See, fortunately, both technological progress as well as market dynamics has ensured that the capital cost of solar projects has come down.
Yeah, now we are looking at 5 rupees 50 paisa and even lower
Yeah.
per unit.
Okay. I mean, what is the exact number? That is a matter of detail
Right.
and a matter of some debate. But it is substantially lower than what it was only a few months ago.
Yeah, because I will say an NTPC tender is 5 rupees 50 paisa now, the last tender. So
yeah.
that is an NVVN tender. So
See, but NVVN tender, it says that you will be paid 5 rupees 50 paisa and you have to quote for viability gap funding.
right,
So it is expected that the actual tariff is more than 550. Let's say if it is 650 or 7,
yeah,
then that 1.5 rupees or 1 rupee is to be funded out of
viability
viability
gap funding. That's right.
on the capital side. So it still requires subsidy.
Right.
The point is, are we enforcing the RPO regime?
That is more important. Yes.
Because beyond a point, how does this get financed? Yes, prices have come down,
Right.
but it is still higher than thermal.
Correct.
And there are issues of what is it called? It cannot be dispatched. Dispatchability is an issue. Intermittency. So it is still more expensive. How exactly it is going to be funded?
Right.
Part of the fund will come to, like the NVVN model, part of the fund is going to come from VGF,
Correct.
and that in turn is going to come out of National Clean Energy Fund.
Correct.
So which means that thermal is subsidizing solar,
Correct.
in effect. because NCEF is coming out of the tax levied on coal. So thermal is subsidizing solar, which is fine. There's no issue on that. But what is the status of implementation of RPO?
Right.
We find that states are not adhering to it. And what is the mechanism for ensuring that they do?
So should we not go for a portfolio obligation as well? Because we have now stuck to purchase obligations without a portfolio obligation.
No, it is a purchase obligation.
Because then that is at the utility end, at the end of the utility. But suppose now some step was taken by one of the Mr. D.K. Jain when he was the director technical NTPC, when Inertia suggested to them. That's the reason you see all this 2% of NTPC capacity should come from solar, because they had land bank and all this can be used. So why not impose a generation to the generation utilities a portfolio obligation instead of just a purchase obligation?
It is just shifting the actual implementation part from the purchasing utility to the generator.
Yeah, because
But
then
ultimately the mechanism is the same.
Yeah, but that will help, because what happens, you can bell the cat, you know that some capacity has to come, because failing which then they should pay a higher tax. Some kind of tax could be
So
levied.
then what happens, in other words, you simply cannot buy just thermal power, just brown power.
Right,
You have to buy bundled power.
absolutely right,
So then that is mandatory for everybody
right.
on all generators.
Exactly.
Yes, that's a good idea.
That is a much
That's
easier
the-
way of implementing your RPO's obligations, because the purchase
So-
obligation will never come unless you look at the portfolio. Like for example, Tatas are one of the biggest private generators. But if you look at the portfolio of how much of the renewable energy they have, it's only now they are going to that level. So I think every generator is also obligated, if he has been producing carbon-based power, which is actually a pollutant to the environment, then he has an obligation to the environment.
Yeah, so you tell the generators that certain percentage of your sale
Exactly.
has to come from renewables.
Yes.
And if it doesn't, you buy REC
Exactly.
rather than forcing the utility to buy REC.
Exactly.
And utility will just not be able to buy power
Right.
without bundling with some revenue. So ultimately, the cost of purchasing power will go up,
Correct.
right? So as a result, the market may come down.
Right.
Even today, you are finding
Yeah.
that all power is not getting sold.
Correct.
So you might find that even more power is not getting sold
Mm-hmm.
because it has become more expensive.
But then again, your argument will come into play that consumers are actually there who are ready to pay.
Yeah, sure. So it all has to
This is a mismatch.
it all has to fit in together,
Right. Because
You
most
can't-
urban consumers would love to pay.
right? So you can't just tackle one part of the piece of the mosaic and
Correct.
say my puzzle is done.
Right.
You have to find all the puzzles that fit together,
Absolutely.
and distribution side is extremely important.
It's a very important thing.
Yeah.
So what do you think, sir? We will also go towards smart grid access, because that's another way of monitoring and bringing this T&D losses and others and accountability in. Because I'm not talking of smart grid in transmission. I'm talking of the distribution access, where the key issue of smart gridding is involved. Because when you don't lose power, and technically you can stop
without-
doing that.
In my opinion, without a good smart grid, and
Right.
definition of smart grid is not just one, it depends on what exactly you want to
Absolutely.
achieve. Without a good smart grid, you cannot implement separation of carriage from content.
Correct.
It is impossible.
Right.
So if you want to do it, you have to also pay attention to implementation of smart grid.
Yeah.
So
Especially in
there is a-
distribution.
Yeah, in distribution. You have smart grid forum, this and that, but do we see any outcome of that?
It's been very sluggish. Nothing has come out.
Yeah.
So anyway, Kavle sir, wonderful talking to you. In fact, do you have any message, any last message? Like you almost said everything, but any last message to the country regarding, looking at this sector which is driving the economy?
I would certainly push for hydro because this is our main main part of my business.
Right.
So I would say that we need to give a more fair treatment to hydro. Look at the issues why hydro is going down. It is not in the interest of the country that hydro percentage is going down, and take the steps that we have been discussing in this interview
Right.
that are required to give a fillip to hydro.
Thank you, Kavle sir.
Thank you.
Wonderful to talk to you.
Thank you.
So we'll come back again, maybe another time, for many other issues we want to address in Inertia.
Sure.
Thank you once
It
again.
was a pleasure. Thank you.